Hi, I'm Carol Turnall, Executive Director of Central Minnesota Community Foundation.
And I'm Daniel Larson, Vice President at United Way of Central Minnesota.
A few years ago, the United Way and CMCF decided to offer bus tours, connecting our donors with needs in the community by going to visit local nonprofits.
Now, more than ever, our community needs yours and our support. So we're here to highlight the individuals and programs that are adapting and innovative to meet the community's needs.
So take a ride with us on the bus.
Thanks, we appreciate your support. Central Minnesota Community Foundation. Thank you especially to the Morgan Family Foundation and the Initiative Foundation and the Minnesota Disaster Response Fund from the Minnesota Council of Foundations for their generous financial support and the ongoing partnership with our organizations. Our goal today is to show you how important these relief dollars are in Central Minnesota.
That's right. So we're going to show you how nonprofits have had to adapt due to the change in needs related to COVID-19 and the efforts to flatten the curve. With businesses and schools closing or changing the way they operate, it has impacted local nonprofits who are seeing much greater demand for their services.
Okay, if you've all found a place, we really only want 2 to a seat max, please. No shoving, John, Brian, Jessica, hands to yourself. There's plenty of room up here next to me and Carol. I will assign you if necessary. Okay, couple of housekeeping items. First, we encourage you to turn on speaker view up here in the corner of your screen. That's the easiest way to track who's talking. Second, during each introduction, you will see interactive questions to test your knowledge of the organizations that were touring's efforts. Please take your best educated guess, and I'll let you know the answers during each segment. Third, we want your questions. Please type them into the chat found at the bottom middle of your screen, and I'll let you know, and we'll get to as many questions whenever possible, time permitting. And last, to get the chat rolling, we'd love for you to share where you want to go when shelter in place is first eased. Other than we're all going to go get a haircut or to a baseball game, but please put in where you want to go, where you want to visit, what you want to buy. We may be able to summarize some of that later.
So where is it you're going to go, Daniel?
Well, it's hard to say. There's so many places I would go, but I think it would be for 6 or 7 cups of coffee made by Jules Bistro and at least as many sugar cookies at the same time.
Ah, Jules, I miss Jules. Yeah.
Yep.
So I've been getting some meals at Old Capitol Tavern and the Old Brick House to keep me going, but there are so many places I miss.
I feel you, and I miss running into strangers, and I miss running into friends and partners across town by going to places like the White Horse or Jules or grabbing a cup of coffee at Caribou. And I miss the free coffee at the Central Minnesota Community Foundation boardroom as well, Carol.
Absolutely, it was always on.
Okay, well with that, get your questions coming towards us. Let us know where you'd like to go when we all get back to reality, hopefully. And with that, we're going to head north to the north side of town. Our first stop is the Central Minnesota Health Center, led by Executive Director Rick Lee. The Central Minnesota Health Center was one of the first grants from United Way and the Central Minnesota Community Foundation, as we understand the looming crisis and immediate need for support during this time. If any of you, like me, are trying to teach and work and instruct and do childcare at the same time, I'm sure you understand just a fraction of the needs out there. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rick Lee for an introduction to the Mental Health Center.
Well, thank you. I understand there's a PowerPoint coming up here. All right, there we go. So Central Minnesota Mental Health Center, our mission is fostering healthy lives and thriving communities. We've been, just last year, we celebrated our 60th year of existence in Central Minnesota, and we're doing all kinds of things in the 4 years that I've been here to combat the the unintended best kept secret in St. Cloud. So we're doing our best to work on name recognition. Central Minnesota Mental Health Center is one of the largest community mental health centers in the state and has a broad spectrum of mental health and chemical health services. And you can see those on this PowerPoint slide. Next, please. Next slide, please. There we go. So our governing philosophies of how we deliver care are called trauma-informed care and health integration. Trauma-informed care comes from the recognition that upwards of 90% of women who seek mental health services have trauma in their pasts, and 80% of men have trauma in their pasts. It's actually likely that the traumatic histories of men is higher than the 80% number because we know there tends to be a little downward pressure on the self-reporting of trauma in men relative to women. And in addition, health integration. So about 10 or 15 years ago, there was some really startling findings, demographic findings, that people with serious mental illness have life expectancies of 25 years less than the rest of the population, with an average life expectancy of about 56 years. They don't die young from directly related to their mental illness. That is, it's not because of suicide. But we've come to understand very clearly that that people with mental illnesses have a significantly higher incidence of chronic health conditions, lifestyle-related conditions. Often poverty goes with serious mental illness, and maintaining good physical health is challenging when you're both impoverished and experiencing mental illness. So the idea of the smoking behavior, for example, of a person with mental illness, historically was not really something that we paid much attention to. But we also know now that about 50% of the tobacco products sold in this country is purchased by people with mental illnesses. So they're significantly overrepresented in that population as well. And smoking-related illness is one of the leading causes of death in people with mental illnesses. CMMHC is, we're fairly large. We serve over 10,000 unduplicated individuals per year, and we have operations in Benton, Sherburne, Stearns, and Wright counties. While we serve anyone in the community, in fact, regardless of their ability to pay, approximately 70% of our clients are on medical assistance and are thus low income. We truly are the safety net for the safety net population. COVID-19 hit us extremely quickly. Although we're a nonprofit, overwhelmingly our revenues are generated by fee-for-service, that is, billing insurance for the services that we deliver. And it was obviously very quick that people, number one, were uncomfortable or fearful about going out in the community and coming into our buildings, but we also needed to protect the safety of our staff. So very quickly, we shifted to telehealth platforms, and we're ramped up on that quite substantially. But frankly, the financial sustainability of the organization was jeopardized immediately. We were a fortunate recipient of one of the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and that has been a lifesaver for us. And people with mental illnesses, you know, social distancing for them can be experienced as social isolation. Social isolation is stressful for anybody, but it can particularly exacerbate mental health conditions that someone is already experiencing, or can actually create or contribute to the manifestation of mental illness as well. So when this slide was prepared, we were at just over 90% of our services delivered by telehealth. We're higher than that now. It's probably closer to 95%. With the generous support of United Way, the Community Foundation, and others, we have been frantically purchasing masks and other personal protection equipment. And of course, those items were not in our budget. And also the social distancing has caused us to, although our doors aren't formally closed, like I said, overwhelmingly the services that we're delivering are delivered by telehealth, and we have north of 90% of our staff who are working from home. Right now, it's interesting. We're not seeing a demand for a surge in demand for our services. However, I was recently on a call with St. Cloud PD Assistant Chief Jeff Oxton, and he tells me that the 911 calls, mental health related 911 calls, are absolutely surging. We're not quite sure what the disconnect is because even our crisis phone lines are not ringing off the hook. But we're definitely expecting that as this goes on. We do think that, unlike many other health systems, I've heard Ken Holman at Centricare talk about this. I think it's very likely that that there is a considerable proliferation of telehealth going forward, and even with the PPP loan, we're long from being out of the woods financially. So it's a like the old curse, may you live in interesting times. These times are unfortunately incredibly interesting for us. So again, thank you to United Way and the Central Minnesota Community Foundation for the funding to help us continue to serve our clients safely during this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. And now Carol will be joined live by Dr. Lee and Director of Development Communications, Kelly Doss from the Minnesota Mental Health Center. Carol.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Rick, what do you think's been the most difficult change to implement due to the needs caused by COVID-19? You mentioned several things that you've done. What was the most difficult to implement?
You know, it's actually probably the most challenging is the social distancing and the personal protection equipment. I mean, we still do have a bare bones staff in our buildings, but getting people to wear masks is challenging. So the executive director and other members of the leadership team, we have to show a good example by when we leave our offices and enter common spaces in our buildings to put on our masks. But I think over the long term, the biggest challenge is going to be this adaptation to telehealth. Mental health and chemical health services, historically, that personal relationship is a very significant part of the healing or the recovery or the therapeutic process. And, telehealth or Zoom meetings, they're great. They're not the same as being in person together. So that's gonna continue to be an ongoing challenge.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, so you mentioned too about not really seeing a lot of increase yet. I know in my experience when we had the flood in Roseau and I was there, we saw a lot of impact that carried on for quite a while after for people. There's almost a reverberation. Do you have any insight of how long you'll be dealing with the impacts of the pandemic?
Oh, I think this is going to be ongoing. This is our 1929. This is a societal changing experience. We long for going back to normal. And talking about the new normal tends to be a little bit trite to use that term, but the fact of the matter is, how we were living on December 1st, 2019, I think is not coming back. So this is going to go on for a long time. and even when we open back up as a community or as a society, I think people's comfort level is not going to open back up as quickly as we could unlock the doors to a business. So I think this is going to go on a long time.
So what do you think will be your greatest need as you implement the changes that you've made and that you'll need to continue making? And how will you meet those needs?
Well, I think I think it's telehealth. Not only our staff, but the people that we serve getting comfortable with that with that technology and getting access to that technology. I mean, right now, thankfully we do have authority from all of the insurance companies, from Medicare to all the private plans and all the smaller plans, that we can deliver and bill for our services delivered by telephone. That's not going to last. But for one thing, it's not the greatest way to deliver mental health services. For now, to be able to stay in touch with people, I think it's incredibly important for us to be able to do that and for them to be able to be in contact with us. And also for us to continue to generate the revenue that we need to stay open. But the fact of the matter is, even though people who live in poverty often have smartphones because we've made it possible as a society, as communities, for those folks to have those phones. However, they often do not have the resources to have the kind of data plans they need or access to Wi-Fi and that sort of thing. So I think it's on the recipient end that the technological challenge is going to be greatest. And also, I think just even when we're ready and want people to come in, I think there's going to be a long-term apprehension about coming in and sitting in a small room with another person.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for all of your information today. It sounds like a challenge, and we appreciate having your service available to help people along the way.
Well, thank you, Carol, and I absolutely appreciate this opportunity. It's tremendous, and I look forward to hearing from the other two nonprofits that were on the tour today. Thank you.
Daniel, back to you. Where are we headed?
Great. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you, Rick. I know we're all concerned about the potential for a looming mental health crisis, and we're so thankful for your mission and your responsiveness and your service to our community. Carol, we're heading to the south side of town. We're going to visit a dynamic, vibrant program called Too Much Talent. But before we get there, if you look out to the side of the window, you'll see we're passing where I want to go get some sugar cookies. And I should have asked you, Carol, where do you want to go first?
Oh my gosh. I am looking forward to doing a yoga class in a studio with others. So for me, it's great. There's so many of them being offered online, and I appreciate that effort, but it's just not the same as going to class again. So that's the thing I'm looking forward to. And then second, out of town, is just hugging my grandbabies again.
I hear you. I have a niece who I'm just dying to get back to. I would also like to go to anywhere that'll do the dishes for me, because it's all nonstop these days. Okay, I am really sorry to have to say this. I didn't think I would have to with this group, but please keep your hands to yourself, and profanity is strictly prohibited, especially from the United Way staff in the back of the bus. I will pull this bus over, okay? Otherwise, let's head south and learn about Too Much Talent. Too Much Talent is about empowerment. It's about guidance for the performing arts and beyond. They have great partnerships with South Junior High, where 8 weeks ago, you could find them leading over 100 kids on a Saturday morning. They have partnerships with Promise Neighborhood, United Way, and many more. And now we'll see a video to learn about their brand new program.
The founder of Too Much Talent. Our Our mission is to help the youth and families to the next generation of leaders by providing education, resources, programming, and ensuring every person reaches their full potential. Our vision is to aim to develop identity and independence for youth and families by promoting healthy relationships and critical thinking skills through arts, mentoring, and comprehensive coaching to strengthen our communities. Thank you.
You say, oh my God, I see the way you shine. Take a pen, my deep, and nice and walking light. Who knows who stops me that time I was passing by. And I beg to see you dance just one more time. Ooh, I see me. And I'm a member of CMCF. And what I like about it is friendly. I get to meet a lot of new friends and it helps me and my parents.
Okay, thanks so much for that video. I think we're going to try to show the answer to the question here. Let's see how many of you got it right. Good. Very smart students. All deserve to be at the front of the class because it is all of the above. Too much talent helps with education, arts, mentoring, and coaching. And now we're so delighted to be joined by Lenore Hunt and Shawana McIntyre, founders and leaders of Too Much Talent. On to you, Carol.
Great, Lenore, Shawana, thank you so much for joining us. What's been the biggest? Absolutely. What has been the biggest change in the way you've done business since COVID-19?
Well, our biggest change was kind of coming into this non-physical contact situation. We are really big on hands-on. We like helping, we like being right there, Johnny on the spot when our people need us. So it's been kind of hard, but we have other programming that we were able to implement video software for us so that we can continue to make people feel like we're in the house without actually having to be in the house. We also do our dance from video software. We, you know, they're able to contact us whenever they need to talk, or if anything is needed, they have all the means they can to, you know, contact us, as well as all of our video classes are run on video software. All our dance classes are run on Zoom. We kind of do everything video now.
That's great. So can you share a story of how what your nonprofit does has made an impact on someone's life?
Well, what made an impact on some people's life, just not one. Well, we had got funded from the United Way, so we was able to give back to the community. So we basically was able to give back Pampers, milk, food supplies, laundry detergent, you know, different things that was needed to build the family foundation, even just dropping off a balloon to just say, hey, social distance, it's gonna be okay. So we've been, you know, practicing social distance, but also helping us to on a community and doing drop-offs, because we actually have a bus as well too. So
yeah, actually feels like we're on a spaceship when we get off of all that PPE gear.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So what's the biggest challenge or opportunity that you see your nonprofit going through going forward? Are there things that are going to have to change, or?
Well, actually, For us, it's really not too much of a change. It's just hopping back and forth from video software to getting back into physical contact. And whenever we do get from this COVID epidemic and we're able to, get back into physical contact, it's going to be a lot of back and forth adjusting, but we're kind of prepared for both ends.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that, it looks like what typically happens is a class where kids get together and be able to perform together. And I know that excitement that they get, a lot of that is fed by the fact that they're sitting there with their friends doing this activity.
Yes.
And so you really see that as being an important part that would continue on when we can all start getting back together again.
Yeah, that would definitely be an important part. And just even having the parents involved as well, too. The parents actually miss coming, watching the girls dance, watching the boys flip, going to basketball games. So we we try to stay as close as we can as the family through Zoom, basically doing a social distance, driving by, helping out. So we try to stay connected as possible to make them not feel so unconnected.
They're able to see even, through the videos, how they're developing, their skills are developing. They can use videos to go back. They're pre-recorded, so we record everything we do. So it kind of helps them in a sense still.
Great. What made the two of you start Too Much Talent?
So it started in Houston, Texas, in 2013. Me and my husband was the founder of it. We saw that it was a lot of kids with nothing to do, with so much talent, and not enough programs that was for low income families up in the area. So that's what made us start the program. So then me and my husband moved here to St. Cloud, Minnesota, 2017, when I met Shawana. And basically we just saw it was a more need as far as arts programs and just basically, bringing out kids' talent, no matter if it's poetry to singing to dancing to playing instruments. We was just so much like, hey, we're there. We might not have all the funds to do it, but we can try to get there. It's a community, and just help out them. And basically after that, we just started getting kind of more bigger, because by working with the families, we started seeing it was more resources that needed in the community, more than just art.
Right. And this isn't about just the kids for you. It's about the entire family, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it started off as, okay, well, let's give them something to do, but we care. So we started to hear about the needs that weren't being met, or the uneducated part of them not knowing about the fact that there are other programs that are here that can help. So the ability for us to connect people with the resources that are already here and provide when the resources that are here can't is really important for us, as well as their artistic, spectrum of life.
That's great. Well, that's fantastic. We appreciate so much your being a part of this and sharing what you do. And we know that you're an important part of making our community a better place to be. So thank you. Thanks for moving here. Thanks for getting involved and seeing a need and filling that.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, thanks so much, Lenore and Shawana. As you can see, I've got a future member of Too Much Talent with me right now. I hope there's space when you do have an opportunity. And I also definitely want one of those sweatshirts. Where do I get one of those, Lenora? Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay. Everyone, our last stop is going to be heading south, or heading west across town. We are going to head to the Islamic Center of St. Cloud. And we actually have a bit of a curveball in our presentation today. Yes. There's things on the floor because I dropped them. Is there anyone else balancing work-life balance more than ever right now? Okay, so we're headed over to the Islamic Center, and we were expecting to be joined by the president of the Islamic Center, Mohideen Muhammad. However, unfortunately, earlier this morning, he was diagnosed with COVID-19 himself. Up until half an hour ago, he expected to join us and to present, even though he wasn't feeling well. He is not feeling well right now, and he's not feeling up to presenting. So we're very lucky to have a United Way employee, an AmeriCorps visitor, Akram Elmogi, who has been with us for over a year, instituting our American Reading Company curriculum across many centers in central Minnesota. Awesome. We are going to be joined now, as Akram's going to work through the PowerPoint, with Amy Trombley, our Director of Education Partnerships at United Way. And I thank you so much for all joining us for our last stop.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for the introduction. I'm going to go walk through the PowerPoint, a little introduction with St. Cloud Islamic Center. That was the picture. St. Cloud Islamic Center exists since 1996. They started very small room to their second mosque in 2007, which is the very small one by the SCSU on the 5th Avenue South. And then with the community help, they got the Garfield building, which is the current building right now, since 2015, which is this one. This is how the Islamic Center inside look like. That is where the imam usually leads from the prayer. This is a women's side. This is kind of how the center exactly look like inside. Impacting future generation is after school.
And I'll jump in here in case audio cut out for Ikram. The after school enrichment program that they do is two-faceted. And Ikram, jump in anytime you would like to. One of the pieces of the programming that they do, they have over 800 students that are coming through this building on a pretty routine basis. One of the pieces that is happening is they are getting Duxi, which is like a religious education component for the students of the Islamic Center. And then the other piece is their amazing program, the Improve Achievement Project that they have going on after school. And they're working with hundreds of kids at least 3 days a week after school between 4 and 7 o'clock. And they're providing additional academic support for their students. Many refugee students may come over and are behind academically. And so having additional time to have academic support at their grade level or at their learning level is incredibly important. And the TAP program works to do that in partnership with the school district and United Way of Central Minnesota by providing aligned multilingual learner curriculum. So the books that kids are reading in school to learn English and literacy skills is the same books they're using here at the Islamic Center. And they were able to do that also with the Morgan Family Foundation grant. And then Ikram leads that program with those students and provides training for the center as well. Ikram, are you back? I know she has had difficulty with technology as far as internet access.
I know she's trying. She's reloading right now.
Okay, perfect. I can't see that. So the COVID-19 pandemic has hit the Somali community incredibly hard. They have been preparing quite in depth for something like this, being that they live in spaces that are typically smaller, and they have such a community presentation and culture about them, and helping to support people and other families, and having large families as well. And so they have been in partnership with many other Somali organizations working to create a community support system for our area, with the concept of if there is a will, there is a way. And so this group meets weekly to discuss the issues, and one of them recently had been the concerns at the meat packing plants, where we have seen just such a great increase in identification now that testing has started to happen. One of the projects that United Way of Central Minnesota was able to fund was a community media center. So the Islamic Center in leadership with many other partners has been able to raise health awareness through video, talk, mass texting in languages that are familiar and are also culturally sensitive. Kaheen Adam, who is on here, who is a partner with United Way of Central Minnesota and CentraCare, is one of these people who is providing some of these supports. And is also working to continue to provide that health awareness, the importance of social distancing, the importance of some of the myths that are out there for the community, and supporting in as many ways as they possibly can. The other really essential piece that they're looking at is the Feeding Our Elders project. If you're familiar with the Islamic culture, it is Ramadan right now. It started on April 24th and goes through the month of May. And one of the traditions of Ramadan is that families are fasting during daylight hours. So they aren't eating or drinking during this point of time, amongst many other things. But that creates additional challenges during this time. And typically would get together as a community to break those fasts once the sun sets, and really supporting their seniors as well, who are either place-bound or unable to cook for themselves or feed themselves. So the Central Minnesota Community Foundation, through their generous support, has been able to provide funding for delivered meals through a very method-based process of accessing food that's appropriate and culturally sensitive, and then having it being delivered safely as well. So thank you. I apologize that I had to present. I did my best, but if other people would like to chime in and add additional information, you definitely can.
Great. Ekram was
right?
Ekram was just able to get back on, I believe, with access. So Claire, I'll let you talk with Ekram.
Yeah. Great. Ekram, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, great. So we talked about Amy shared a couple of the programs that have changed for you based on COVID-19. What would you say the biggest challenge has been for your community and that the Islamic Center has chosen to address during this time?
Well, the biggest challenge has been the virus is lately spread in our community really fast, and the St. Cloud Islamic leaders and other community leaders are trying their best to address using through Facebook or media or the Somali radio in any way we can. But the biggest challenge right now is not seeing our kids that we serve every single day, not able to serve kids directly, but at the same time, we're trying our best to provide online resources as we can. And I know St. Cloud Islamic Center has been on the front line doing this.
Have you started to talk at the Islamic Center about the fact that we all keep referring to this new normal, how things are going to be different in the future as far as being more socially distant, and what kind of an impact or changes would need to be made at the Islamic Center to be able to address that? Have you started looking at that yet, or is it too early?
It is not too early. We already start kind of looking that, but at the same time, our leaders right now, our majority of them are positive. This week has been really tough. 100 of our families are being affected by the COVID-19. So we're kind of dealing with that right now, but it's very hard and tough to when our leaders are even not able to provide the best resource we can. But I and so many other young people, Maharo and Henny, I think, who is in here, are doing their best what they can to provide resources and information and where they can get tests. Yeah.
So what do you think will be done differently in the future? Or more importantly, maybe what could we, the rest of the community, be able to do to help support your 100 families that you mentioned that are being affected? I think I might have lost her. Is there anyone else that would want to jump in and be able to share what you know?
I
Can you
believe
hear me?
we
Okay.
can.
Go ahead, Em.
I was going to see if Kaheen was also on, who would be willing to share, but please share, Ikram.
I will invite Henny. I think Henny is in the she is with us, and I would appreciate if she share with us anything that she is want to share and say a little bit about how Center Care is dealing with this. And she is being great to our community, providing a lot of resources about health. And even though it's really hard, one of the biggest challenge right now is how the isolation part, as our families, our extended family live in a complex apartment, that itself, it's challenging and it's hard. But at the same time, we're doing our best as we can.
Great, thank you.
Hi, this is, I just wanted to say thank you, Ikram, for the shout out. I really appreciate that. So yeah, we understand how important community partnership is right now, and we did a lot of work early on regarding education and shelter in place and all of that. Right now we're past that stage. We're kind of in the second stage of containment because COVID is here. It's live, it's well, it's affecting a lot of families and communities. It's actually devastating so many people right now. And we're working with public health and other community organizations in the mosque. Poor Muhyiddin, he's been working tirelessly day in and day out, and my heart just breaks for him right now. We're gonna miss him with all the work we're doing. And yeah, it's an uphill battle, but with everybody's help, I think we're going to conquer this.
That's great. Well, thank you for all the work that you are doing. So, and we wish the best for everyone. I know that this is scary for all of us when our health gets affected, and I know that you're doing everything that you can to support your internal community, and we as a community want to be supportive as well. So Daniel, any follow-up?
Thank you, Hani. Hani is a community health specialist with Center Care, and we do have, as Amy mentioned, Kaheen Adan is on the line with us or has joined us. His specialty is mental health, and we just have one last question before I wrap him up. So in addition to the physical health issues, Kaheen, what are you seeing as far as the mental health in the East African community?
Thank you, Danielle. That is a great question. There's a lot of fear in the community and confusion, and this fear comes from the trauma that already the refugee community is dealing with, lack of language barriers and cultural barriers. And one of the things that our team was doing, Maharo and Hani and I, at the beginning of the coronavirus was education, because what we realized there is a lack of understanding and lack of education. And we were going radio, local TV station, we were creating flyers and brochures. And also we are currently doing phone calls to check in the community members and to find out whether they are sick, if they need medication, if they need food, what other things that we can help you with them. And a couple of the people that I spoke with were really so happy, and even some of them expressed that they are dealing with emotional issues, and they are so happy that I check in and that we care. Because what happens sometimes when you are dealing with this kind of issues, people feel like they've been abandoned and nobody care about them, and then calling them and checking in and talking to them in their own language and explaining the situation is really a huge help. And this is what we are currently doing. And I'm so glad that Centra Care are give them this opportunity to help our community.
Thank you, Kaheen. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you to Hani and Ikram and Kaheen for all jumping in last minute here. Our thoughts are with Muhyiddin. We wish him the best, as well as anyone. who has friends or family members or themselves suffering right now from the virus. And thank you for bringing us that nice mental health issue to kind of bring it back home from where we started today. Thank you to everyone for who's doing great work in our community. Before we turn it back to Carol to close up, I want to let you know that we've looked at the results of where everyone wants to go. And it looks like the top ones are the theater, the library, the beach is a good one. A lot of people want to see family, go on vacation, someone to Disneyland specifically. And I think most importantly, and one we can all relate to, a hug. So I'm going to turn it to Carol after reminding you to all, please pack out what you packed in. Let's leave this bus as clean as we found it.
You're a bit of a tyrant bus driver, Daniel. I can see a future in your
kids for 15 years, so.
You know what it's like to be the bad child on the bus. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
I, of course, always sat in the front row, ankles crossed, hands folded. So
I trust that, Carol.
Absolutely. So we just want to, again, thank all of you for joining us on this virtual bus tour. We will bring another one down the road again as we, in our response and relief funds, have the opportunity to learn more about what's going on in the community. We know that we are a long way away from being done with the needs in this community. Once we get past the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of recovery time, and we can't do it without all of us pulling together. And so we really appreciate the fact that you are on this bus with us, getting us down the right road to succeed in our community.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Next time.